Hello, my name is Jason, and I'm here to talk about a brand new feature in Burroughs called debug levels. Debug levels are a way to output a rough traceback as to how Burroughs processes each SQL query. Depending on the input SQL query, Burroughs may create intermediate tables or streams because KSQL does not directly support specific SQL functions. And in this video, I will give a brief demonstration as to how debug levels work. So in the first line of the CLI here, I have started up a transactions producer, which consists of transaction data based on store region or transaction price. And in the next line, I've set an output table to, in this case, it's output 01. And in this next line of the CLI, I have I've typed out a very basic SQL query. So now I will run this query, and this query should work. Okay, so now our query is active, which means it has successfully executed and is now running. So I've gone ahead and typed in .debug1, which will return us the KSQL query that is actually being run on KSQL DB. And I've also gone ahead and typed in .debug2, which stands for level 2. This will give us a more detailed traceback as to what is going on within Burroughs with our SQL query. So you can see here that we have invoked, Burroughs will invoke execute statement here numerous times. And in this particular instance, we are actually creating an intermediate table to store some of our data because KSQL does not support specific SQL functions from within our query. So if you actually jump ahead towards the end, we can see that Burroughs is actually creating another intermediate sync connector where we would eventually transfer our data from a specific Kafka stream into a table. And we can actually see what the settings for the sync connector is being used. Now, let's say we had an incorrect query. So I will simply take off the R at the very end of store R. So this should return us an error. Okay, so you can already see that Burroughs has already started to give us a very brief error, but it doesn't really tell you much. So if you were to type in debug1, this is the actual query that KSQL was trying to run here. So in this case, you can see that down here is the new query. So it's trying to run the same query, but you can see that the difference is there's no R at the end here. So if we wanted more detail, so type debug2, you can actually see where it's going wrong. So here you can see that it's erroring on when it's trying to create this intermediate table again. But as you already know, there is no R at the end of this store R here. So as a result, Burroughs cannot create this table. And that is it for the debug levels demonstration.